A reading from the Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus told them, "Ask, and it will be given you. Search, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened for you. For everyone who asks receives, and everyone who searches finds, and for everyone who knocks, the door will be opened. Is there anyone among you who, if your child asks for bread, will give a stone? Or if the child asks for a fish, will give a snake? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good things to those who ask of him? And everything do to others as you would have them do to you. This is the law and the prophets." The word of the Lord. Now I find this reading fascinating. If you remember from Tuesday, we read a prior section in the chapter before from Matthew. We took a little break yesterday and read from Luke, and now we're back to Matthew one chapter later again. And on Tuesday, when I was doing the daily sermon, we were talking about how Jesus teaches his disciples to pray. He teaches them the Lord's Prayer, and we talked about how prayer is really not so much about you informing God what you need. It's really more about, because God already knows what you need, right? Prayer is actually about you becoming aware of what you need and how you let God into your life. It's a mindfulness practice. But now we read one chapter later in the Gospel of Matthew, and it seems like Jesus is contradicting himself, because now he is telling his disciples, ask for what you need. And that if you ask for what you need, it will be given to you. Seemingly contradictory. So how are we to make sense of this? I don't think it's an accident that when Jesus was talking to those gathered around him and learning from them, that he at first moved them away from the idea of praying to God as being kind of like a bringing your wish list to God and then expecting God to grant your wishes like a genie. Jesus rightly is describing God as not being your personal grant-wishing genie, instead asking you to look within yourself and be mindful of your needs. Then, in chapter 6 of Matthew, once he has set that expectation, now you have in this chapter, Jesus has said, we've level set, we've made sure that we're clear about our expectations, about where God is calling us and where God is present in our lives. Now, once we've done that work, now we can go about the work of looking inward at where our needs really are. And trust that God will be present to us in the midst of those needs. Not in a kind of a wish-granting capacity, but really in a compassionate God who would never leave you alone. Jesus describes God in this story as being like a parent to a child who loves that child, and saying from my own place of having young children who are very quick with demanding what they want, and me as the parent being aware of what their needs are and not granting their wishes, but rather making sure that their needs are cared for. God likewise, Jesus is describing God likewise to have that similar capacity of saying, you be mindful of where your needs are. Be aligned with where God is moving you in your life. And God is present to you in the midst of where your needs are. You can trust in God. Again, not to be a wish granter, but to be present to you in the midst of your needs. Maybe sometimes how God is present to you in the midst of your needs is in the love and compassion and support you find in the people around you. And so I feel this is twofold. We had on Tuesday that reminder to be mindful about looking inward where our needs are. And then that's paired with today's reading, this Thursday, on remembering that in the midst of those needs, we will find God's compassion and love and presence. Thanks be to God.